Hello. Excuse me. Jeez. So I just want to start this video on the TamBoTC channel by saying that I might take a day or two from other YouTube stuff just for a bit. I got the flu and I felt like absolute trash. I don't know if it's COVID or anything because I didn't get to. I don't have one of those test thingies, whatever the frick you call them. And neither did I have the energy to get one either. So I just felt so awful. I have a sore throat still currently. I'm trying to get over a slight headache. It's not as bad as it was before. The other day I woke up with this bad heartburn and a slight sore throat. And once that cleared up, I was like, oh, I'll do some Minecraft or that survival thing because I really wanted to do that again and exploit it. And then I got a lot of support from different people through there, whether I was on PlayStation or people on YouTube itself. Of course, one person that was kind of being a jerk, saying you suck at Minecraft, even though they were barely there. And they were only doing it to be an asshole because they have nothing better to do with their life. So, and yeah, like I think an hour or two afterwards, after maybe a couple of comments to somebody else I was talking to at the time, I just suddenly got really bad chills and just felt horrible. I just wanted to rest. I was so low on energy. Even getting up to go to the bathroom, I felt really wibbly wobbly, as the 10th Doctor would say. And I had a bad sore throat, a headache, and everything. I just wanted to rest and bundle myself up. I felt absolutely horrible. I haven't had a flu in such a long time, so it was just really weird timing that suddenly happened. But there it is, and I got the flu. And hopefully I'll recover by tomorrow or the next day. We'll see. So, but I do feel like I am at least recovering somewhat. I also want to be careful because of my sore throat. I don't want to damage or hurt my voice more. So yeah, but I did want to talk about in just this video about Angry Joe and Superman, because I didn't really, when I did that Superman video where Angry Joe was getting pissed about Superman using guns in a Fortnite game, even though I wouldn't doubt he was joking, he was also clearly being serious at the same time, because you can tell by his mannerisms and such, body language and all that. He was just, but then I thought of like the most popular and well-known amongst the Superman comic books, the most well-known and iconic series, which is the Death of Superman and the Reign of Superman that comes afterwards. And Superman doesn't have his powers fully like returned, so he has to resort to using guns. So I'm just thinking to myself, is Angry Joe forgotten that, or is he just dumb or not know about that for some reason? It slips his mind. And then I figured the only stuff I've ever heard, while Angry Joe does seem more obsessed over Superman than I am, like I've even talked about where I'm not the biggest fan of Superman. I hate overpowered characters, honestly, unless they're really intriguing, like a cosmic entity, like say Lovecraftian cosmic entities are really interesting, powerful beings. But yeah, and I've always liked Superman for his more people person approach. Like I loved seeing Christopher Reeve's Superman when he came up to just random citizens saving their cat or something, or putting out a fire. I always loved that stuff with like Superman. And Dean Cain and Christopher Reeves has to be like my favorite Superman. Though Dean Cain's a little off the edge in real life, so I'm not as big a fan of him outside of his performance as Superman. Um, But yeah, I love that series. What is that? Is that The Adventures of Lois and Clark? There's so many things called Lois and Clark or Clark and Lois now. It's just kind of like pick one. um, or Superman and Lois. Most of the stuff though that I've ever heard or seen the chance that Angry Joe has talked about with Superman is mostly the Snyder, either the Snyderverse stuff or more recent stuff. I've never really seen him talk much comic book wise. I've never really seen him talk much about his past stuff. Even when it comes to it, I love the animated series that was alongside the Batman animated series in the 90s and so on, as well as Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. I think there's Super Friends. There's the original cartoon, Superman cartoon, which I believe was in the 40s. There's also George Reeves' Superman. I've even learned about Superman versions from other countries thanks to Brandon Tenold, like Turkish Superman or whatever. It is just kind of silly. And then there's like, other than Christopher Reeves, I own the first two Superman movies. I do ironically kind of like the Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. Ironically, like the two awful Superman sequels that come after the first two. And I've always liked Superman 2 the most, but rewatching them both, I actually think I like the first Superman the most. It is the truest to Superman and its ultimate form than what I originally remember, as well as it's just a really darn good movie in general. And if I had to add anything else, it doesn't. The second movie is so confused because there's two different cuts of it, and they both have really silly, ridiculous things and dumbass endings. Honestly, one repeats the ending from the first movie, and the other one's that memory wiping kiss or whatever. There's just weird things in Superman movies. Actually, is the memory wiping kiss in both? It might actually be in both. I can't remember what the other ending thing was. But anyways, yeah, I love all these different series of Superman. I even loved the guy from Superman Returns. I remember liking Superman Returns. Um, I never, even though I watched Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, Justice League, both the Snyder cut and the original, and all that stuff. And even when Superman had cameos in other movies like Black Adam and Shazam and such, I just never saw Henry Cavill as my Superman. He just didn't look like Superman to me. I think the writing for him was too. It was either too dark, stiff, or just not my Superman. The only time I saw his Superman is in one of the most notoriously bad scenes that I've seen him as Superman actually talking with people as a people person was that one scene where you clearly can tell he's got a CGI upper lip. And while I love that kind of stuff that Superman does, that was just a really awful put together scene. So almost nothing truly made. Maybe he is a better Superman than I think, but I just feel like the movies he was put in, even including Man of Steel, had just too many problems. I felt like Man of Steel dragged too much. They took too long. Like, I even have my friend's uncle and aunt are gigantic Superman fans, and even they are like, nah, Man of Steel is hashtag not my Superman. And they're much larger. They could probably like know everything there is about Superman if you gave them multiple Superman related quizzes. And then there's my other friend Josh, who loves Superman, but and he's a fan of movies, even like bad movies. It's hard for him to get bored or anything. But the only movies I've ever seen him fall asleep during is Last Jedi and Man of Steel. I remember we were like, "Hey, let's give Man of Steel a shot again." And he fell asleep before it got to the action part of the movie, and I was like, "Yeah." I figured. I never felt like most of the other actors, even if you thought Henry Cavill was a genuinely good casting choice, I never felt like any of the other actors were good choices either. I never bought whatever her name is as Lois Lane. I never bought his father. I'm not a big fan of Russell Crowe either as his dad. And what is his name? Jor-El. Yeah, I just never bought this. And even his Earth father, like I never bought that dude. I'm not a big fan of that actor either. This just shows a whole lineup of actors I did not care for. I like Henry Cavill as a part of Geralt of Rivia. I just didn't like him as Superman. I don't know. I liked the Superman costume. That was cool. But it felt too dark. It felt like it moved a little too slow. It was a bit boring and dragged at times. And while it had the cool, like Dragon Ball fight scenes, it just was really, man, my headache. I'm feeling it like just hurt right now. Freaking is annoying the crap out of me. Probably gonna rest more after this video. But I just never bought his Superman. I never really cared for that movie as much. And it's just weird because I never hear Angry Joe talk about any of that other stuff. I feel like even though I don't nearly own as much stuff Superman related, I'm sure, than Angry Joe. Like, this isn't a battle for who has the most merchandise or whatever. But somehow I feel like I have more knowledge, or I've seen more Superman related stuff, or I appreciate Superman for the true qualities that truly matter of Superman. Even with all his philosophy talk, which just kind of makes Angry Joe seem like the movie equivalent of the Matrix, trying to blather on to you philosophy and all this stuff. Even though the Christopher Nolan movies do that too, it just feels like Angry Joe is very pretentious with that stuff, and it comes across in the worst ways. And I used to really like Angry Joe's channel. I used to think Angry Joe was the best YouTuber on the platform, especially game reviewer. But like over the years, when he started attacking other YouTubers and being an asshole, basically became the king of hypocrisy. And yeah, he is just a real dickhead over the years. And even the thing he stood against, which is a lot of pretentious or disgusting business practices from game companies and so on, or other corporations. He's even defended some of that stuff from time to time and looked hypocritical there too. And there's just so many situations that made him look bad. And that's why I don't really follow or watch Angry Joe anymore. But I remember looking up, actually just today, what his Superman videos are, and the only ones I could really find was on recent stuff. And I know he mostly catches up on talking about what's relevant at the time, but I'm still surprised he doesn't talk about, even in live streams, I never really see him talk about, like, much on Christopher Reeves, Dean Cain, even the dude from Superman Returns when he did the Infinite Crisis series or whatever, to many more. And it's just kind of surprising. Somehow, someone like me, who's not even the largest fan of Superman, but I do like Superman, somehow feels like I'm more knowledgeable, or I've seen more Superman or read more Superman related stuff, and somehow even knew something that Angry Joe felt kind of like he should have known off the back of his hand, yet somehow he made himself look like a big hypocritical doofus, because once again, he's the king of hypocrisy. There's so many videos alone on YouTube calling him out on being a hypocrite. So many things. So, yeah. He's the hypocrite king after all. And it sucks. And I know I've done so many videos on Angry Joe and such. You gotta understand the reason that I only do these type of videos is because I used to love Angry Joe's stuff, and to see him as well as so many YouTubers go down. It pisses me off. It really does. And I feel like he has become the very evil he sought to destroy in the first place. And it sucks to watch. Sit back and watch. It's like a little part of your soul or whatever dies the more you see such dumbass stuff happen. So, and I've talked about in the past all the other problems I've had with the Man of Steel. Just everything revolving around, like, Shazam showed that he could take the villain out of the populated area in his first movie so that he wouldn't destroy buildings or hurt civilians in the process, where Superman could have done the same thing. There's also multiple Kryptonians which get killed, and it's like you couldn't at least save one of them that maybe isn't as influenced by General Zod. One or two of them. And then, like, the fact that there were so many ways to approach that General Zod death scene and such. And it's just kind of silly from everyone in that perspective and situation's point of view. It's just ridiculous. It just felt like a very pretentious film, too. Like, it thought it was trying to say things deeper than it actually was. And while I know that there are Christopher Nolan movies that do that same thing, I at least think it works better for a lot of the reasons I've seen Nostalgia Critic, for example, talk about, where it works better there because the characters are the ones still being developed well and are still the ones that drive the motivation of the messaging in the story rather than the other way around. So I think it works there, where I feel like Man of Steel was doing kind of the opposite thing and just approaching it in an entirely different, stupid way. I mean, there's been so many arguments over this stuff with Man of Steel. It's not really worth going into that stuff even further. If you like Man of Steel, if you don't like Man of Steel, go ahead with either. It does not matter. Though I think it does say something when a film is very divisive amongst people, and still is, kind of like the way Last Jedi was very divisive amongst people. I think that says, or The Last of Us, I think that says something about those series, that there's definitely some major problems compared to other things that have had criticisms and such, but are still mostly liked by the majority of people. So, though that's not always the case, especially nowadays, but back in the day with Last Jedi and all that, I feel like it is more so the case than it is sometimes today. Because I've seen some ridiculous situations too, where that I feel like people overbloat stuff or aren't looking at them and with enough detail or foresight or whatever it may be, and just want to find something to complain about mostly. So there's different ways things can turn out, but I do think during that time people weren't entirely that terrible with things. There were definitely some people here and there, but I don't think everybody was that terrible with that kind of stuff, and at least a good portion of people knew what they were talking about, whether it was from one side or the other. So, yeah. And then, of course, there's bound to be some people who don't know any better or who are make complete idiot fools of themselves, sadly. And I would hope that they learn better or become better people, kind of like a lot of our favorite fictional characters that have shown that they have grown over time to be better people themselves and to develop as better characters throughout time. So, yeah, I would hope that would translate to real life with people. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say on this. I always felt it was weird that, like, I feel like somehow I've seen more and know more Superman stuff than Angry Joe somehow. How is that possible? I'll have to show what I have of the Superman collection. I think I only have a couple of Superman related figures. I really don't have much, and I know I have a bunch of Superman like DVDs and such, and I think some of it's digital, though I should get it physical, and I do have a bunch of Superman comics. But yeah, and I know I have some Superman clothing, I believe, Superman themed clothes. So yeah, I think that's about it. But hopefully you found something interesting from this video. Let me know what you think. What's your favorite Superman movie or show? I think my favorite Superman movie has got to be the very first, Christopher Reeves. I think my favorite show is the one with Dean Cain. Is that The Adventures of Lois and Clark? Nowadays, with so many Lois and Clark or Superman and Lois stuff, it's like I get the names mixed up nowadays. There's so many of them. Yeah, and of course, the favorite animated stuff with Superman is probably the '90s show or cartoon show. But I have watched the original animated show recently too, because that was on Tubi, and you can find it on YouTube actually. And I think I do own some episodes of that show too. So, with these cartoon collections. But anyways, hopefully I'll have a recovery over time from the flu, and I will get better by then. I hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.